What I found is working with babies that aren't crawling when developmentally they should be crawling is that they just don't have the strength and the coordination, and that's why they're delayed. And, I've worked with plenty of babies and families where the families were like, well, the baby's just lazy. They don't want to. Completely not true. If a baby can do it, they will. And if they can't do it, it's not because they are lazy. It's because they physically can't. Mm-hmm. So we need to get them into that 4-point quad position and set them up to take those little baby steps forward in that crawling position.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jessica. And this is All Things Sensory by Harkla.
We are both certified occupational therapy assistants, and together with Harkla, we are on a mission to empower parents, therapists, and educators to help raise confident and strong children of all abilities.
On this podcast, we chat about all things sensory, diving into special needs, occupational therapy, parenting, self-care, overall health and wellness, and so much more.
We are here to provide raw, honest, and fun strategies, ideas, and information for parents, therapists, and educators, as well as other professionals to implement into daily life.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey there, welcome back to All Things Sensory by Harkla. We are thrilled to have you here with us today for a really unique episode.
Oh, it's unique again.
It's unique again. I'm Rachel.
I'm Jessica.
And today we're talking about crawling, shocker, and the connection between ocular motor and vision skills.
So we all know that crawling is important. We all agree that it should be back on the milestone checklist. We all agree on that, right?
Actually, I just have to share something that I found. I was doing some research for a course, and I was digging deep on the CDC website, and I found a page that was connected to the milestones and how they took all those milestones out. And they said these milestones should not be used as a developmental screen. They should not be used as a guideline. They should not be used as X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, so why do we have them here if they're not to be used as a developmental screening, if they're not to be used to follow as milestones? It was just a really interesting comment that I found on this article. It was an article on the CDC's website about the changes to the milestones.
So we all agree that crawling should be back on the milestones and that we can use the milestones lists and checklists as a way to determine how a child is developing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
We all agree on that. Great.
So with that being said, it is important to know the connection between ocular motor skills and crawling, because there is a specific developmental sequence that we move through, and crawling happens to be kind of right smack dab in the middle of that first year of life, first 18 months. And a lot is happening all at once from a developmental standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so where crawling really comes into play and why it's so important is, number one, it helps develop those cross-lateral movements. So the opposite arm and leg movements. You think about the bilateral coordination, we're crawling with the opposite arm and leg. We're not doing right arm and leg simultaneously and left arm and leg simultaneously. We shouldn't be, and we shouldn't be scooting on our bum or using one hand to propel ourselves or just using our legs. Are you watching this episode? I hope you're watching this episode.
I hope you are now.
Scooting with the
legs. Now I really hope they are. Let's still encourage them too. Yeah, I think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this encourages the eye teaming and incorporating both eyes working together to navigate their environment.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, our body is divided into left and right. We have left and right sides of our body, left and right leg, left, right arm, left, right ear, left, right eyes, left, right brain sides, right? Everything's divided into that left and right. And so when we do an activity like crawling, where we're coordinating the left and right side of our body, we're coordinating the left, right side of our brain, we're going to start working on coordinating the left eye with the right eye to work together.
Exactly.
So I think it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Yes.
So the next one, looking forward while moving, helps to build visual tracking as well as depth perception. And so these underlying skills are required for future activities like reading and writing, catching a ball, throwing, playing, navigating their environment. And you don't necessarily think about those things when a baby is learning to crawl. You're not like, yay, we're going to be able to read and write so much better now.
But it's so true.
I mean, that's what I think about.
Of course
but
it
like
is.
the normal person. And
I just think it's like the progression of it is like, first we roll, then we sit up, then we crawl, then we walk. And all of that like sequence of development really builds that foundation as our body starts to coordinate together, our eyes coordinate together, and crawling really sets the stage for safely navigating the environment.
yeah, and as you were talking about all of those milestones, they're all led by vision. Mm-hmm. You roll because you want to turn over to get that thing behind you. You crawl in order to try and get to that thing that you want. You walk to try and get there faster. So it's all, I see something, I want to get there. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that we are getting there as efficiently as possible is really key for those future skills.
Yep. Additionally, when we crawl, we stimulate the vestibular system with those head movements and head position changes. And we know that vestibular is directly connected to vision and eye gaze because what Rachel just said, our movement is directed by our visual gaze, our visual tracking. That stimulates the vestibular system. So there's just like this big, huge connection. It just continues to connect together. Round and round it goes.
Exactly. And then you have to think about a baby who is crawling and navigating their environment. They're looking down at the floor. They're looking up at a caregiver. They're looking at the wall. They're trying to dodge the chair that they're crawling under. And so you think about all of those ocular motor skills, those are saccadic eye movements. So they're navigating between looking at all these different planes, and they need to be able to do so in a smoothly coordinated fashion.
Now, we have heard plenty of stories from adults who say, I didn't crawl as a baby and I'm totally fine. And that's great. In our research and in our clinical practice, in the last 11 years that we've been working with children, we have seen that most, I'm not going to say all, but most of the children that we work with, if they didn't crawl, if they didn't master good hands and knees, opposite arm and leg crawling, we see a lot of challenges later on, specifically related to ocular motor skills. So hand-eye coordination, visual vestibular processing, reading and writing, clumsiness in navigating their environment, poor ball skill development.
Even crawling for a really short period of time. They might say, my baby crawled for like 2 days or 2 weeks, and then they moved up into walking. And that's something that we want to keep in mind as well. And we don't want to dismiss like, oh yeah, my baby crawled. Okay, well, how long? Oh, 2 days. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So we want to make sure that we are digging a little bit deeper, asking those questions of our clients. How long do we crawl? What type of crawling pattern did we achieve, right? Maybe they just did army crawling, which army crawling is great, but we also need to make sure that we're getting up into that quad or hands and knees position as well.
That's actually a question that I've seen come up a couple times is like, well, is it okay if my baby didn't army crawl before crawling, or my child only army crawled but didn't hands and knees crawl? And I always like to say army crawling isn't as important as hands and knees crawling, but I still don't like to skip it.
Correct. So I guess a red flag or a yellow flag for a child who is only army crawling and they never got onto their hands and their knees is, do they not have the strength? Do they not have the coordination, the bilateral coordination? Do they not have the ocular motor skills? Do they not have the core strength? What aspect is missing as well? So I think that, like you said, crawling on hands and knees is the most important. That's all.
Yeah, that's most important. Yes.
I didn't have anything else to add.
I think that was great. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. Let's talk about some tips for babies to help them crawl, keeping in mind that we do have our early intervention blueprint, which is designed for birth to 3 years old, and there is a specific section in there in this digital course on crawling and how to help your baby crawl, or if you're a therapist, how to help your clients crawl in infancy. But let's give some tips for that.
Yes. So for babies.
If
you have a baby who is not crawling, and let's say maybe they're 10 months old and they're not crawling on their hands and knees, my go-tos: crawling up the stairs, doing leg lift type activities. So they're laying on their back, you have like an ollie ball, and you're having them kick it. So they're activating their core, lifting their legs up. And then my next go-to is having them crawl over your legs. So you have an object on one side, they have to crawl over, activate their hips, get those hips up. You're working on a tall kneel position during play, split kneel position during play. You raise
a 10-month-old?
Yeah.
Split kneel at 10 months?
Yeah.
Good luck.
I mean, the only reason I say that is because I vividly remember doing this with Trip.
At 10 months old?
Yes, because
he had kneel.
He had his janky crawl.
I know, but at 10 months old, he was in a half kneeling position. It was like
he was about to pull himself up, and in that position of like pulling himself.
Was he holding him up onto something?
No, we just like lifted up. Like I had a like a sensory bin or something, and it was like up a little bit, and so he was in that tall kneel, and I am like really hands-on facilitating it. It's not independent at all.
I just am imagining like my 10-month-old babies that I've worked with, and I'm like, I think they would fall over.
I am very hands-on, and I'm like holding one down, facilitating at the hips, and they're playing in the bins.
I'm sorry,
and then
I was so confused.
Hopefully that makes sense now that I explained it, but I'm glad you asked.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Crawling through tunnels, crawling over pillows,
and I think
activities.
Even like, because if they're not crawling yet, we want to get them into that position, right? So we need to first make sure that they can hold a hands and knees position, that 4-point quad, and maybe help them do some rocking forwards and backwards, stabilizing at their hips, having a toy that is just out of reach. So they have to reach while they weight bear on one hand, and then they're going to shift, and you can help facilitate them reach with their other hand. Slowly progressing to placing toys a little bit farther away. So maybe they have to take one little crawling step and then get it. Because what I found is working with babies that aren't crawling when developmentally they should be crawling, is that they just don't have the strength and the coordination, and that's why they're delayed. And, you know, I've worked with plenty of babies and families where the families were like, well, the baby's just lazy, they don't want to. Completely not true. If a baby can do it, they will. And if they can't do it, it's not because they are lazy, it's because they physically can't. So we need to get them into that 4-point quad position and set them up to take those little baby steps forward in that crawling position.
Yeah. And like Jessica mentioned with the rocking on hands and knees, right? We want to make sure that the STNR is integrating, because once the STNR integrates, then the head, the eyes, the neck, the body isn't at the mercy of what the eyes, the neck, the head is doing. They can disassociate their upper body from their lower body. And so doing those hands and knees rocking, like help facilitate rocking. I did that on the same day. I vividly remember it. Doing that rocking back and forth can be really beneficial. And then I
think essential. I think it needs to be done.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes. And then this is kind of an out of the box strategy, but I did this with Austin. I would put her in a diaper, and then we had really cold tile floor in our house, and she would army crawl everywhere on the carpet, and then I'd put her on the hard floor, and because it was cold, she would get up onto her hands and her knees. Off her belly. And so, you know, I wasn't like forcing her to crawl, but it was more like, okay, you can get into this position. Let's just hold that position now.
Yeah.
And just stay in that position.
That's funny. Just put your baby on a cold floor.
Or grass.
Perfect.
Or grass.
Perfect. For older kids, toddlers and up, it's never too late to crawl. You know, if you've listened to Rachel or any of our other podcasts, you know how passionate Rachel is about crawling. We actually have an episode where we talk about crawling for brain development. So check that out. But it's never too late to crawl. So for our kids who maybe they skipped crawling, they had a janky crawl, if we're seeing challenges with ocular motor skills, if we're seeing challenges with reading and writing, ball handling skills, safely navigating the environment, we want to get them on the floor crawling, because it's really going to help develop those ocular motor skills, that bilateral coordination, and simultaneously they're getting a lot of proprioceptive feedback to help improve their body awareness. Like crawling really truly is like a full body sensory experience where we're working on so many things at the same time.
Exactly. So moral of the story here, get your babies crawling, get your older kiddos crawling, get yourself down on the floor crawling. It's going to be beneficial no matter how old you are. Like Jessica mentioned, the program that I wrote, Crawling for Brain Development, it's 3 to 99, right? There's no age gap. We want everyone down on the floor crawling. If you're pregnant, crawl every day. Focus on crawling, and you'll improve your ocular motor skills. The whole reason why we're talking about it today.
And if you really want to like bump it up for your older kids, have a visual chart set up so they can read the visual chart while they are crawling forwards and backwards.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you're going to start taking videos of all of you crawling throughout the day. Definitely do so and tag us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We would love that, and we appreciate you being here and listening and learning with us.
Okay, and with that, we'll be back next week.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
If you want more information on anything mentioned in the show, head over to harkla.co/podcast to get the show notes.
If you have any follow-up questions, the best place to ask those is in the comments on the show notes, or message us on our Instagram account, which is at Harkla_family or at All Things Sensory Podcast. If you just search Harkla, you'll find us there.
Like we mentioned before, our podcast listeners get 10% off their first order at Harkla. Whether it's for one of our digital courses or one of our sensory swings, the discount code SENSORY will get you 10% off. That's SENSORY.
Head to harkla.co/sensory to use that discount code right now.
We are so excited to work together to help create confident kids all over the world. While we make every effort to share correct information, we're still learning.
We will double check all of our facts, but realize that medicine is a constantly changing science and art.
One doctor or therapist may have a different way of doing things from another.
We are simply presenting our views and opinions on how to address common sensory challenges, health-related difficulties, and what we have found to be beneficial that will be as evidence-based as possible.
By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or your child.
Consult your child's pediatrician or therapist for any medical issues that he or she may be having.
This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast.
Thanks so much for listening.